Welcome back to another episode of Diagnostic Dennis. So we got a 94 Ford F150 XLT with a big 5.8. We're looking at an oil pressure center gauge. We have a customer complaint. It doesn't work. Key on. Start the truck. Doesn't do a thing. It's located down there. And then I got the wire pierce right there with the Phillips probe. It's a white with a red. Simple circuit. Oil pressure gauge right there. Ignition on the left. Ground on the right. And you got a 20 ohm resistor on the signal wire going out. Oil pressure B8. And you follow B8. It's a white red. It's a white red wire right there on B8. You follow that. White red 8 right there. Oil pressure switch. It is not a gauge sender. It's just a switch as indicated by the switch pole in the ground. This is ground right here, so that means there's voltage going down in this wire ready to be grounded. And when there's some sort of pressure on this one, the spec is saying 6 psi of oil pressure, then it'll close the switch, and that will make the gauge move supposedly from this low or no pressure to right in the middle of normal. It's a dummy switch, not a gauge. Go back to the Pico. So blue I have on the Phillips probe on the signal wire, and you'll see I have a red ignition trace on the red channel on cylinder 1, so you know that the engine's running and there's oil pressure without actually manually checking oil pressure with the gauge tester. So blue, key on, goes high. When the red spark starts to happen and the engine's running, blue wire gets grounded. The sender is doing its job. The switch is doing its job. But it's not working on the gauge. The gauge is not doing its job. So if you ever have one of these that aren't working, any gauge like this, usually the procedure would be this. You go key on. So you see we have voltage. Specifically put in the middle of that, we got 5.3 volts. We got voltage. And what we do is we connect the jumper to ground. And then ground the wire out. Right there. We're grounded now. That's where I grounded the wire out. No gauge movement. So we got a bad gauge. So here's the cluster. I want you to notice something on the speedometer. So the levelness of the cluster affects the gauges. Just note that. So here's the oil, here's coolant. So oil's on the top. Here's what it looks like back here. Got 3 terminals. Signal, ignition, and this is ground. It says it right there, it's hard to see. This one's easier to see. It says ground right there. And you can literally just pop these out. And they're those style connections, just like pins going into spade terminals almost. That's the connections. Easy to replace. Using the power probe adapter, check our equipment, touch this, get 12 volts. So we know we had 5 volts coming out on the signal. So key on. I see lights on the cluster board going on. So ground. 0.02. So 20 millivolt. Ignition. 12.0. 12.03. And signal. 5.46. And actually the signal wire is this. Turn it on, gets grounded. 0.79. And look, our gauge works, but it doesn't work. So if I hold it like this, it's stiff as a board. But then if I level it out, then it'll go to normal. It'll move. So you see that? Hold it like this normally, go over here, and it stops at low. Stops at wherever I put it. But if I hold it level, no matter what I do with it, it wants to go to normal. In the dashboard normally, so that's a bad gauge, yeah, bad gauge right there. If I ever saw one. All good, Winkler.